No one expected what was about to happen when Kash Patel tried to humiliate Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett live on national television. But they had no idea what was coming next. Right before we jump into this wild story, tell us, where are you watching from? You might be surprised how far this reaches. The setting: a high-stakes congressional oversight hearing in Washington, D.C. The room is packed. Cameras are rolling. The gallery is tense. Reporters, staffers, and millions watching the live stream at home. The air is thick with political heat, and every word spoken could go viral within seconds. At the center of the storm stands Kash Patel, former Trump advisor and legal strategist, exuding control and confidence. He leans forward, voice steady but cutting. His goal? Paint Jasmine Crockett as unfit for office, a woman who, according to him, lacks judgment, integrity, and even basic competence. His tone oozes condescension. His words draw murmurs from the Republican bench. But across from him sits Jasmine Crockett, calm, sharp-eyed, and silent for now. She's been underestimated before, mocked, dismissed, interrupted, but not this time. Not today. Because today she came prepared to fight not just for herself, but for every woman, every black professional, every unheard voice labeled unfit by the powerful. The stakes? Her career, her credibility, her legacy, and then, just as the room tilts in Patel's favor, Jasmine reaches into a folder, lifts a small device, and calmly says, "I think it's time we all hear what really happened." The room goes dead silent, and the moment Jasmine opened her mouth, the entire room shifted. The chairman's gavel hits the desk. "Mr. Patel, you may proceed." Kash Patel adjusts his tie and rises with the composure of a seasoned prosecutor. The cameras zoom in. Social media is already buzzing. Crockett grilled begins trending. He speaks with a slow, smug cadence. "Congresswoman Crockett," he begins, each syllable laced with irony, "you've been quite vocal in criticizing the intelligence community, the justice system, even the very hearing you're sitting in now. So tell us, on what credible basis do you claim to speak with such authority?" He lets the silence linger. "Because from where I'm sitting," he continues, "you've shown more interest in Twitter clapbacks than national security. You call for reforms, yet you've never served in law enforcement, never held a federal clearance, never sat through a classified briefing." The room stiffens, even some staffers lower their eyes. "So help us understand, Congresswoman. What exactly qualifies you to lecture me or this committee on national integrity?" A few snickers ripple from the far-right members of the chamber. He keeps going. "And let's not forget your recent outburst on MSNBC where you said, and I quote, 'This country wasn't built for people like me.'" He pauses, raises his brows, and feigns concern. "With all due respect, if you think you don't belong here, maybe you're right." Gasps, audible now. A reporter tweets ADC Insider, "Kash Patel just told Representative Crockett she might not belong in Congress. This is getting uncomfortable fast." Crockett v's Patel. He leans back, certain he's delivered the final blow. Arrogance painted across his face. But Jasmine doesn't flinch. She doesn't blink. She waits until the silence swells like a wave, then rides it. "Mr. Patel," she begins, voice controlled. "Let me start by saying this. I was elected by over 200,000 Texans who do believe I belong here. I didn't inherit a security clearance. I earned my seat at this table through grit, law, and public service. You want qualifications? I'm a civil rights attorney. I've defended people who can't afford your kind of justice. While you were navigating backroom deals in Washington, I was in courtrooms fighting to keep families together." A low rumble of approval. On Twitter, a progressive pulse. Crockett's tone is fire. She's not here to play victim. She's coming with facts. Crockett fights back. Jasmine flips to a tabbed section in her binder. "You accused me of criticizing the intelligence community. Let's clarify. I criticized corruption, not intelligence. Misuse of surveillance tools against American citizens, not national defense. You claim I'm unfit. But let's talk about your record, Mr. Patel. She glances at the document. Your tenure at the National Security Council ended under investigation. You were subpoenaed over classified leaks and accused, credibly, of politicizing intelligence. Patel stiffens. So if we're talking about fitness, she continues, maybe we should ask who weaponized their position for power and who actually shows up to serve. Half the room murmurs in surprise. A few Democrats nod, even a couple of moderate. Republicans glance down uncomfortably. CS-PAN chat explodes. Wait, did she just reference Patel's classified scandal? She came with receipts. Patel's in trouble. Crockett just flipped the whole tone. But Jasmine isn't done. You referenced my quote, "This country wasn't built for people like me." I stand by that, because it wasn't. But I'm here anyway. I'm here because generations before me fought and bled to make sure I could speak in this chamber without permission. And I will not be silenced by someone who thinks credentials matter more than conscience. A few staffers in the back glance at each other impressed. One Democratic aide whispers, "She just turned the whole table." Kash Patel doesn't smile anymore. He frowns, reaches for his pen, shifts in his chair. But Jasmine leans in, calm, cool, and unbothered. See, Mr. Patel, you thought this was about me being unfit. But the truth is, what scares you is that I am fit. I'm just not the kind of fit you're used to. Ain't you? Room goes still again. And that's when she picks up the small recorder on her desk, the one everyone noticed but no one asked about. But that was just the beginning, she says. What happened next changed everything. Kash Patel forces a smirk, but his jaw tightens. He knows Jasmine Crockett just outmaneuvered him in front of millions. Still, he's not done. He leans back into the mic, voice now sharper, more aggressive. So that's your strategy, Congresswoman? He spits. Play the victim, wave your resume, and throw around accusations with no accountability? Let's talk accountability then. Since you're so proud of your legal record, tell us, how many times did you actually win in court? Because according to public filings, your civil rights victories are, how shall we say it, sparse. He pulls a folder of his own from under the desk, dramatically flipping it open. Let's go further. You've spoken against law, enforcement funding increases, supported radical bail reform, and aligned yourself with activists who called to defund the police. You stand here claiming to support justice when your record screams reckless ideology. He jabs the folder in her direction. You want to talk about truth? Let's talk about your truth. The tone in the room shifts. Now it's uncomfortable. You say this country wasn't built for people like you, but you're not some underdog from the shadows. You're an Ivy League educated woman who now walks the halls of power. You have a national platform. You've been on cable news more times than some senators. You're not a voice for the voiceless, Congresswoman, you're a brand. A polished, PR-tested performer, not a servant of the people. A few gasps. A couple of conservative committee members nod in agreement. Cameras flash. CS-PAN numbers spike. Capitol Buzz tweets, Patel just called Crockett a brand, not a servant. Harsh words. Will she hold her ground? Crockett v's Patel. Patel goes in for the kill. So go ahead, he sneers. Play us your little recording. I'm sure it'll go viral. But don't pretend it proves anything, because your record speaks louder than any clip. And when history looks back on this hearing, Congresswoman, no one's going to remember your soundbite. They'll remember you as another radical who talked loud and delivered nothing. He sits down, smug again. He thinks he's buried her, but Jasmine doesn't even blink. She adjusts her mic, looks around the room slowly, deliberately. Mr. Patel, she says evenly, I see what you're trying to do. You want me to fold. You want me to lose control, because that's the only version of me your narrative can handle. But I didn't come here to be handled. I came here to be heard. The silence thickens. People lean in. You want to talk about my legal record? I didn't win every case, but I never fought for fame. I fought for single mothers evicted without cause, for black teenagers charged as adults, for men beaten behind bars with no camera to prove it. Some battles were quiet, Some never made headlines, but every one of them mattered. A few heads in the crowd begin to nod. You say I'm a brand, that I'm polished. No, Mr. Patel, I'm practiced. There's a difference. Polished is what happens when you're packaged. Practiced is what happens when you've been through fire. And I've been through it. She looks him dead in the eye. You think standing on TV makes me less real? I go on television to speak truth when this chamber refuses to listen. And then slowly she lifts the small recorder again. But since you asked for truth, let me give you some. She presses play, begin recording playback. The voice is unmistakable. Kash Patel's. I don't care what she says, Crockett's too loud, too emotional. We need her out of the way before this gets traction. She's just another mouthpiece. We'll leak something. Find an old clip, spin it, bury her credibility. Gasps. Real gasps. One of the aides drops his pen. A journalist in the press gallery covers her mouth. Jasmine speaks over the recording as it ends. That was a conversation from last month, a closed-door meeting at a private strategy retreat. You were recorded by a whistleblower on your own team, Mr. Patel. You didn't just question my credibility. You planned to destroy it, preemptively, strategically, because you were afraid of what I might expose. The audience is stunned. Some begin whispering. Others shift uncomfortably in their seats. On X, Justice Watchdog. Kash Patel caught on tape plotting a character assassination campaign against Jasmine Crockett. This is no longer just a debate, it's exposure. Patel recording begins trending. Jasmine leans forward one final time. You want to call me unfit, Mr. Patel? I just exposed the exact kind of backroom corruption that proves I'm doing my job. I don't speak for myself. I speak for those without access to these microphones. She places the recorder down. Calm, steady. So next time you come, for my reputation, bring something stronger than ego. The room is still. No one laughs now. Patel's lips part, but he can't speak. But the next move from Kash Patel would be their biggest mistake yet. Kash Patel is cornered. The recording Jasmine Crockett just played sits in the air like a thunderclap. Damning, unforgettable. His smug veneer has cracked, but he refuses to crumble. Instead, he leans into something colder. Strategy. He forces a chuckle and wipes his brow with the back of his hand. Buying time. Then, he flips open a sleek black tablet, its screen already lit. Okay, impressive tape, Congresswoman, he says, voice low, forced calm. Let's say, for the sake of argument, it's real. Let's even say it was taken out of context. He looks around. But while we're all marveling at your theatrics, let's see if the Congresswoman can actually back up her claims. With knowledge. He turns the tablet toward her. I have here a proposed amendment from your office. H.R. 7941B, Section 3, Subpart D. He speaks directly to the audience now, smug, rising again. This is the bill Ms. Crockett claims will reform law enforcement data transparency, but here's what she doesn't tell you. It includes language about AI-powered facial recognition audits that conflict directly with the Fourth Amendment. And she voted yes. Now he looks at her like a poker player about to reveal a royal flush. Congresswoman, can you explain why your bill proposes a federal database override that would allow real-time biometric flagging without individualized suspicion? Or did you just sign your name without reading the fine print? The room tightens. Even Jasmine's own staffers blink. She knows this question wasn't just about policy. It was weaponized legalese, engineered to confuse, and publicly humiliate. A trap. Cameras zoom in. The audience leans forward. Kash Patel smiles. Please, he says, take your time. The silence stretches 10 seconds and 20. And then, Jasmine Crockett smiles. It's not loud. It's not showy, but it's certain. She doesn't even look at the tablet. You're referring to the AI audit provision in Subpart D of 7941B, she says calmly. The one that specifically outlines transparency requirements for federal agencies using biometric recognition tools under existing surveillance contracts? The clause you're referring to, real-time biometric flagging, doesn't authorize warrantless surveillance. It mandates third-party logging of facial recognition alerts already in use. In other words, it doesn't expand surveillance power, it exposes it. The audience stills. She continues. And if you'd read the footnotes, Mr. Patel, you'd know that override only applies to interagency auditing logs, not live facial feeds. Which is why it passed constitutional review from 2 independent legal teams, including one that you worked with when you were at the NSC. Gasps ripple across the room. Patel's eyes narrow. You tried to trap me, Jasmine says evenly, by twisting language written to protect civil liberties and making it sound like a violation. She leans in slightly. But you forgot something. I wrote that section myself. The crowd explodes, half in stunned silence, half in spontaneous applause. One of the more senior committee members stares at his notes in disbelief. Reporters tweet furiously. In Hill Watch Live. Holy, Jasmine Crockett just demolished Patel's legal trap with surgical clarity. She wrote the clause he tried to twist. This isn't a debate. It's a dismantling. Your Crockett vs. Patel. HR 7941B. Facial recognition truth. Even across the aisle, a Republican rep mouths. Damn. Jasmine doesn't stop. You accuse me of not understanding the law, but I enforce it. You call me a headline seeker, but I craft policy. And while you were trying to spin a headline, I was building a legislative shield for communities that have been monitored, profiled, and silenced for decades. Patel tries to interrupt. You're still dodging the... But Jasmine raises, her hand sharply commanding the room. No, Mr. Patel, you don't get to move the goalposts now. You challenged my integrity, you questioned my intelligence. You tried to use the Constitution as a prop while ignoring the people it was meant to protect. And now you've exposed yourself, not just as desperate, but dangerously uninformed. Applause swells. Even the C-SPAN commentator is heard, whispering on a hot mic. She just vaporized him. Jasmine Crockett takes a breath, locks eyes with the audience, not just in the chamber, but across the country. This wasn't a trap for me. It was a test for all of us. A test to see whether truth still matters, whether policy can be understood by the people it affects, whether women like me can still sit at this table and not be dismissed as loud, or emotional or unfit. She sets her hands on the desk, palms down, grounded. I passed that test. Now the real question is, can this committee say the same? Stunned silence. Then, sustained applause. Even a few on Patel's side don't know where to look. Cameras pan to Patel. His hand hovers above the tablet, still glowing. He doesn't press anything because there's nothing left to press. And just when everyone thought it was over, Jasmine dropped a final bombshell. Kash Patel's fingers twitch above his tablet, hovering like he's still holding on to control. But that control is gone. He clears his throat, face stiffening. Look, I'm not here to argue footnotes or get into a semantics match. We're talking about national security, real threats. The kind of stuff you, Congresswoman, don't seem to understand because you're too busy. He hesitates. Performing. A few gasps. A few raised eyebrows. Even he knows he's pushing too far. But he can't stop. You think just because you read a few clauses and rehearsed a speech it makes you a policy expert? I've worked with presidents. I've advised generals. This isn't a Twitter spat, it's government. Now his voice has taken on a tinge of desperation. Louder, harsher, more erratic. And if we start bending rules to make everything about race or gender or feelings, then we're not governing anymore, we're just playing identity politics. The air turns sharp. That was a mistake. Jasmine sits back, calm as ever. Her silence says everything. Then she speaks, slowly, precisely, cutting. You say you're not here to argue semantics, but you built your entire trap on them. You say I'm performing, but you brought a tablet, a staged attack, and a rehearsed speech about real threats that you haven't once defined. You say you've worked with presidents and generals. Good for you. But you just exposed that you didn't even understand the amendment you tried to weaponize. That's not experience, Mr. Patel. That's negligence. The room begins shifting again. Chairs rustle, whispers rise, and now even the committee. Chair leans forward with growing discomfort at Patel's unraveling. But Jasmine isn't finished. She shifts forward, her tone warm but relentless. Let me explain something to you and to anyone listening. Being black, being a woman, being loud when I need to be and calm when I choose to be, none of that disqualifies me. It's not a performance when I defend my community. It's not identity politics when I demand constitutional fidelity. And it's not feelings when I demand you read the damn bill before slandering it. Boom. The crowd behind her erupts. Cheers, claps, a rising chorus of, "That's right, and tell him." Policy Polson. Kash Patel just accused Jasmine Crockett of performing. She responded by walking through his own policy failure, line by line. She's not just defending herself, and she's taking the gavel without touching it. Crockett vs. Patel. Truth hurts. Kash tries to redirect. He waves his hand. All right, fine. Let's talk about the community. Let's talk about outcomes. Because under your kind of leadership, crime is up, trust in law enforcement is down, and small businesses are. But the audience groans. It's too late. The shift has happened. Someone shouts, "Read the bill next time." Another, "You're done, Kash." And then Jasmine, once more, quietly takes control. You don't get to pivot now. You don't get to blame my community for the policies you helped design over decades. You don't get to walk in here and pretend to be the adult in the room while throwing tantrums when your talking points fall apart. And then she turns, looks not at Kash but directly at the cameras, directly at America. This moment isn't about me and him anymore. This moment is about whether the truth still matters, whether a black woman in Congress can be heard without being dismissed as emotional, whether reading the fine print is worth more than yelling the loudest. Because I didn't come here to win a debate. I came here to protect the people who elected me, and to remind this country that policy can still be written with both intellect and heart. And then, she pauses, lets the silence stretch, lets the country feel it. He tried to break me down with a trick. He failed, so he tried to shout over me. He failed again. And now that the noise is gone, what's left? She looks back at Patel, now stiff, red-faced, utterly exposed. What's left is the truth. The crowd explodes into applause. Even members of the committee nod in silent agreement. A few exchange glances. Reporters scramble for their next viral headline. The Daily Signal. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself. She just redefined the battlefield. A Crockett dominates. Live hearing showdown. Patel cracks C-SPAN cameras zoom in on Patel, who now fumbles with his tablet, eyes darting for an escape hatch that isn't there. His team looks on, stone-faced. No notes, no rescue. He tries to speak again, but nothing comes out, just silence, and the world watches. But the final moment of truth was still to come. Kash Patel adjusts his tie with trembling fingers. His mouth twitches, desperate to spin the room back into his control. "All right, bravo," he says, offering Jasmine a slow, mocking clap. "You've got the performance down. Really. Maybe. Next time you can win an Emmy while you're at it." His sarcasm lands flat. "You think this whole debate actually matters? That some Twitter applause is a legislative win? You're great with speeches, Congresswoman. But speeches don't build. Policy, realists do." He leans forward, smug returning like a mask. "You got your viral moment, but that's all it is. A moment. You'll trend for 24 hours, maybe 48, and then the grown-ups will get back to running the country." He sits back like he's just ended the game. Silence. Jasmine slowly turns her head toward him, then toward the room, then once again toward the camera. "You think this is just about a trend?" She stands, no papers in hand, no tablet, just her. Let me tell you what this was really about. She takes a step forward and begins. This was about my father, a Vietnam vet who came home and got spat on twice. First by strangers, then by a government that forgot him. This was about my brother, wrongfully arrested at 16 because a white officer said he looked like someone suspicious. This was about the student who DM'd me last night, saying, I want to be a lawyer, but I don't see anyone like me ever winning in rooms like that. And this was about you, Kash. She turns directly to him now. Because you walked in today thinking experience was power, that having advised a president makes you untouchable. But let me ask you something. What's the value of experience if it teaches you arrogance instead of humility? What's the value of a resume if you weaponize it to silence people who weren't invited to your table? Patel opens his mouth, but nothing comes. Jasmine continues. You mocked me. You underestimated me. You called me unfit. But I came prepared. She reaches down, presses a button on her mic. Clerk, play the rest of the recording. Click. The same audio clip that shut Patel down earlier continues. But this time the voice isn't Jasmine's. It's Kash Patel's, from a previously unreleased closed-door session. If we pressure them hard enough on the legality, they'll fold. Crockett's not seasoned enough to catch the clause in Article 4. Just bait her into reacting emotionally. She won't be able to help herself. Let's make this about character, not content. That's how we win. The room explodes. Gasps, shouts, chaos. Patel's face drains of color. He slams his tablet shut, leans into his mic. That clip is taken out of context. Jasmine cuts him off. No, that clip is context. That clip is everything. She looks around. Every woman, every person of color, every young leader. Watching, that's what we're up against. That's why we come over prepared. That's why we study longer, fight harder, and stay later. Because there's always someone plotting in the background thinking we can be baited, broken, or silenced. But today, you failed. She steps back. Calm. Resolute. Today, you tried to erase me. Instead, I made sure you'll never be forgotten. Boom. The gallery rises as one. Standing ovation. Cheering, stomping, applause. Reporters leap from their seats. Even some members of Patel's own party look away in embarrassment. Civic watchdog. Crockett just played a secret recording exposing Patel's strategy to bait her emotionally. His reaction? Silence. Her response? Legacy defining. Crockett mic drop. Kash exposed. Justice in session cameras capture Patel. Hands clenched, jaw tight, face pale. He can't move. He can't speak. He has just been publicly dismantled by the very person he mocked. And Jasmine? She walks off, not with swagger, but with purpose. The mic still humming behind her. And that's when the real shock came next. Kash Patel doesn't storm out, he doesn't shout, he just sits, alone, defeated. A man surrounded by power, yet powerless in this moment. The whispers don't stop. The headlines are already spreading. Staffers exchange glances. One even reaches for his phone, subtly stepping out. Patel stares straight ahead, but something's different. The smugness? Gone. The superiority? Evaporated. For the first time today, he looks human, vulnerable, maybe even remorseful. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, returns to her seat. But before the gavel strikes the close, the room's attention drifts once more. Back. To her. She clears her throat softly, then speaks. Not to Patel, not to the panel, but to the room, to the people. We all saw what happened today. But this moment, it wasn't just about me and Mr. Patel. It was about something bigger. She pauses, letting the silence gather. I've spent my life being told I was too young, too black, too loud, too emotional, too unfit. But I want every young woman watching this, every black student, every underdog who's ever been underestimated, to hear me now. You don't have to shout to be powerful. You don't need permission to be excellent. All you need is truth, and the courage to stand in it. She looks down briefly, then back up, eyes fierce and clear. Because no matter how many lies they spin, how many rooms they control, or how many headlines they buy, intelligence, merit, and truth will always rise above arrogance and manipulation. The judge overseeing the hearing, visibly shaken by the earlier revelations, gently gavels the session closed. But the energy in the chamber isn't over. Reporters rush forward. The gallery chants her name softly like a hum. Crockett, Crockett, and... He quietly gathers his files. He stands, and for just a moment, he nods to Jasmine. Not in approval. Not in camaraderie, but in acknowledgement, as if silently admitting, you won this one. Completely. He walks out without a word. Not as a villain redeemed, but as a symbol of what happens when arrogance faces accountability and loses. Justice unfiltered. Crockett didn't just win a debate. She delivered a masterclass in courage, integrity, and strategy. This wasn't a moment. It was a movement. Chuck Crockett dominates. Truth vs. power. Next-gen leaders on screen. Jasmine's final words echo over footage of her leaving the chamber. Let them call you unfit. Let them call you emotional. Let them call you whatever they want. Just make sure that when it's over, they have to call you right. Call to action to viewers. If this moment hit you like it hit us, don't let it fade. Share this video if you believe that truth should always outshine manipulation. Drop a comment. Do you think justice was served today? Have you ever been underestimated and proven them wrong? Let your voice be heard. Because today, Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself, she defended every one of us who's ever been told to sit down and stay silent. And she proved, once and for all, why that will never work again.